Murder and homicide or whatever unlawful killing is not allowed. But in the performance of your duty, tell your men that whenever their life is in danger and they are in the actual performance of a duty, your duty requires you to overcome the resistance of the person you are arresting. Not only just shouting at him to surrender, because if he does not, and he resists, and it is a violent one, placing in jeopardy the lives of my policemen and of course the military, you are free to kill the idiot.
I spilled my coffee watching CNN's news when its ticker tape flashed. Duterte orders police to kill those resisting arrest. Followed by Duterte, quote, unquote, kill the idiots. A newsreader then simply repeated those statements, adding, as it does every time there is news now about the Philippines, that Duterte's war versus illegal drugs has killed, quote, unquote, thousands. I googled, Duterte kill the idiots, and the search results showed 24 items showing the same headline by news organizations such as American network ABC, The Daily Beast, to small news outfits like Panay News. Credit it's going viral to a dispatch by Reuters, whose correspondents have the knack for finding the sensational spin. I initially thought, has Duterte gone mad and has followed Trump? As is my habit, I searched to hear exactly what he said. I managed to get quickly a video of Duterte's speech at the National Heroes Day celebration where he purportedly made those statements. What follows is my word-for-word transcription of Duterte's relevant statements. You judge if those news reports are really accurate or represent a classic instance of how Western media, or any media, can spin a particular quote so as to shock people. Here's what Duterte said, quote, unquote.
In the performance of their duty, tell your men that whenever their life is in danger and they're in the actual performance of their duty, your duty requires you to overcome the resistance of the person you are arresting. Not only just to shout to him to surrender because it is a blah blah blah, and, if he resists and it is a violent one placing in jeopardy the lives of my policemen and military, you are free to kill the idiots.
That the news story has become viral is of course partly Duterte's fault. Quote, unquote, kill the idiots is such a great attention-grabbing quotable quote, on par with that classic quote, kill all the lawyers. Of course, one can insist that still Duterte categorically said quote, unquote, free to kill the idiots. But do you think Duterte should have instead said, if they resist arrest and are violent, shoot them in the legs? Anyone who's used guns knows how impossible this is unless you are a professional sharpshooter. That is, to aim for and hit the legs of someone about to shoot you. The training of police and military organizations all over the world is for their men to make it their second nature to aim for the center of the body and thrice, as that would minimize the likelihood of missing the target, which certainly won't be the case if you aimed at his peripheral parts. Coincidentally, a human body's center is where the heart is, so in effect you are shooting to kill. My goodness, if only God had located humans' hearts in their legs? Would it have been better if Duterte said instead, if they resist arrest violently, aim for the center of their bodies? Would it be more informative if the news organization's headline was instead, Duterte authorizes the police to shoot to kill, if those resisting arrest fight back? That would be more accurate really, but would that make for shocking viral headlines? And the use of idiots, that's Duterte's normal uncouth language that he is used to. But expletives certainly aren't his monopoly. I can imagine Trump similarly using idiots if he had to refer to criminals had he stops himself from using motherfuckers. Should Duterte have used cocksuckers? As a Trump aide described one of his colleagues? Let's face it, Western media, which we think, given the reporters' high salaries and its centuries of evolution, are so professional, just are not? Listen to CNN and Fox News, and you'll get a total contrasting picture of Trump and the U.S. situation now. As Philippine print media used to be, especially during the past administration, U.S. and European media occasionally are afflicted with that virus called herd mentality. Do you remember the anti-corona frenzy and their idolatry of the president? In the U.S. case, such herd mentality even allowed President Bush to invade a sovereign nation that is Iraq, destroy its cities, and kill hundreds of thousands of Iraqis, on the basis of the total lie that it had weapons of mass destruction. Media herd mentality is probably one of the most dangerous social phenomena now, as it brainwashes entire peoples to believe even a total lie so that governments could start a war that can throw the entire world into conflagration. The global scourge of terrorism now is almost entirely due to the U.S. invasion of Iraq, that its media sold to Americans. What is worrying and sickening is that herd mentality afflicts not just the most mediocre of journalists but even the best. Consider my former colleague Sheila Coronel, who abandoned Philippine journalism to teach rich Americans investigative journalism at Columbia University in New York to become the director of its stable Center of Investigative Journalism and then Academic Affairs Dean of the Journalism School itself, considered the best in the U.S. By the way, Sheila is the equivalent of your taxpayer-trained doctor at government-subsidized PGH and at public medical centers to become the best tuberculosis physician, only to teach tuberculosis treatment at a New York hospital catering to billionaires. Instead of doing investigative journalism on Trump's real wealth or connection with Russian oligarchs or such important, but hard topics, relevant to Columbia University is how American wars are responsible for U.S. technological breakthroughs, Sheila was rushed to join the anti-Duterte mob of American journalists and wrote several pieces in prestigious New York publications that pay unbelievably high fees painting Duterte as, to use her term, quote, unquote, a blood-bathed president and Manila streets as littered with corpses. While Sheila writes well, in her melodramatic 1980s style using colorful heart-tugging anecdotes, I'm quite sure one of her qualifications that made editors buy her stories would be that she was a Filipino quote, unquote, investigative journalist. In fact, she bolsters her demonic portrayal of Duterte by referring to her coverage of him as Davao City mayor back in the 1980s, implying that he was already a killer then, and that she is the expert on his soul. But Sheila wants to have her cake and eat it too, that is, to live and work in the U.S., yet still pretend to be an expert on the Philippines as most ranting anti-Duterte Philams are fond of doing. The most prominent being billionaire Lloyd and Nicholas Lewis. Sheila bases her data on what's happening in the Philippines on what other American journalists have written, and forgets the investigative skills she learned at the Philippine Center for Investigative Journalism. In her recent article in a journal, A Presidency Bathed in Blood, Coronel wrote, quote, unquote, the drug war, which Duterte officially launched on his first day in office, has claimed the lives of as many as 9,000 suspected drug dealers and users. 9,000? Really? I asked her through Facebook's Messenger where she got that 9,000 number, a topic of considerable interest to me as I wrote 3 columns debunking that figure, which was based on a completely wrong article on the news site Rappler. She replied, quote, unquote, numerous news reports quote that figure. She even gave me the link to her Google search results. I asked her why she didn't bother to verify if this is fake news, used mostly by Western media. I told her that even the Google search results she sent me had several reports specifically disproving that figure, yet she ignored those articles. She didn't reply after that. She, quote, unquote, unfriended me as a Facebook friend, obviously so she won't read my posts that disturb her New York worldview. If a professor and dean of Columbia University's journalism school throws journalistic rules of verification and objectivity, and throw and banged it on the president of her former country, what can you expect from old, weary wire correspondents, rushing to file dispatches as fast as they can to fulfill their daily quota, or from mediocre TV reporters,